Welcome to the show, everybody. Well, our political and media liberal elites are spewing deceit that puts you, me and, frankly, British children in danger. All while the truth is buried about the knife crime epidemic ravaging this nation. Within the space of 24 hours, 2 men were brutally stabbed at Oxford Circus tube station, the pulsing heart of our capital. That's a 23-year-old, of course, on Saturday, and a 43-year-old knifed just this morning. The police say the attacks might be linked and released this image of a CCTV of a thug they are hunting. Well, this isn't an anomaly, is it? It's a daily nightmare for Londoners. Sadiq Khan, despite using his taxpayer-funded 300k armoured-plated Range Rover, dared to celebrate a frankly false 19% drop in knife crime back in December 2023. Well, the ONS rightfully slapped him down, pointing to the 40% surge in knife violence since his leadership in 2016. His incompetent reign, in my opinion. The statistics regulator also branded Khan's stats incorrect. Well, the mayor later admitted his error and clarified that it was the level of knife crime amongst young people that had reduced rather than knife crime overall. But I wonder how many people may have been misled by that. But here is Khan, only a few weeks ago, refusing to answer serious questions on knife crime when confronted by Reform councillor Layla Cunningham.
Knife crime, 60% up, and you don't care? Nothing to say? Nothing to say? Nothing to say about knife crime going up? 81,000 phones stolen? Nothing, you don't care?
Yeah, it's not just London, is it? Bristol's knife crime has tripled in a decade, spiking 26% in a single year. And Middlesbrough, well, that has become the knife crime capital of the United Kingdom. It's now a cesspool of violence with 143 knife-related incidents per 100,000 people. In Hemlington, kids as young as 9 are reportedly wielding blades. Buses are said to be pelted with stones, and balaclava-clad dealers allegedly terrorising playgrounds and our children. And nationwide, 55,000 knife crimes in 2024 alone. That's 150 stabbings every single day of the year. Yet 71% of these monsters walk free, and 25% of them are back at it within a year. Meanwhile, mostly harmless citizens are locked up for offensive tweets. To me, and I'm sure many of you, it's become a sick joke. And it's quite the contrast, seeing President Donald Trump clean up Washington, D.C.
And this place was emblematic of it with the crime, the horrible crime. I think now, right now, it's better than it has been in years. Everybody's safe now. Everybody feels safe.
Yeah, well, even the left-leaning Washington mayor had to admit that the president, of course, had reduced crime due to his actions.
We know that we have had fewer gun crimes, fewer homicides, and we have experienced an extreme reduction in carjackings.
Yeah, the president claims he's seen a 45% drop in violent crime within just a couple of weeks of this new action he's taken, all while politicians here believe we're all living in Disneyland. When will these spineless people and their media lapdogs stop shielding criminals and unleash a relentless crackdown on this knife-wielding plague tearing our country apart?
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind. The more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
Well, I want to get the thoughts of my brilliant panel. Former Labour Minister Bill Rummel, political commentator Chloe Dobbs, businessman and political activist Adam Brooks. Chloe, I'll start with you on this, because you're a young woman in London, and I've lived here my whole life, and I've seen knife crime get worse and worse and worse, and young people are terrified, their parents are terrified, and I feel particularly sorry for young women who are, of course, experiencing far more crime targeted at them than ever before.
Yeah, if I were to have children, I would love to be able to stay in London. I love living here. But the way it's going now, I think I would have no choice but to move away somewhere safer, because it wouldn't be safe at all for kids to roam the streets. And I mean, it's really simple. There need to be consequences for carrying a knife. Yet we see people in broad daylight dancing around with machetes, having duels in the street, and people are just filming it. The police maybe give them a warning if they do get caught, and they get let off. It's not difficult to solve this problem, but Sadiq Khan just doesn't seem interested at all. He's more interested in talking about DEI and Islamophobia.
Yeah, and Bill, I want to get on, because as much as London does trouble me, because I'm a Londoner, but when we look at these figures in Middlesbrough, it's quite shocking, isn't it? Because we don't really think about it outside the capital, because there is obviously more crime here in the capital because we're such a big city, but per capita it looks more like Middlesbrough is actually suffering the most. And I genuinely put a firm blame on the Tories for this. They were in government 14 years and they left behind massive swathes of the country while they were at it. What have we got to do? You mean you were in government. What have we got to do to solve this crisis?
Well, we've got to take it seriously, and you're right to point out, the simplistic notion that this is all about London and Sadiq Khan is simply not true. There are many towns and cities across the country with higher levels of knife crime. I've said before on this programme that actually overall crime has fallen for over 30 years, but knife crime has gone up by about 80% over the last 10 years, and that is a palpable fear for parents and grandparents, and you need a multifaceted approach. Machetes, Chloe, have been banned by this government, along with zombie knives. We need the closing of the online sales loophole that has been there. Tougher penalties with curfews, tagging and detention, but also tackling the root causes, and something the government's committed to doing, to setting up the Young Futures partnerships, bringing together police, schools, the health service, mental health service, youth workers, targeting kids who are at risk of getting involved in knife crime, and fundamentally persuading young people, because this is often at the root cause of it, that they are not safer carrying a knife than would otherwise be the case.
Well, that's a big problem as well, because so many of them, I think it's 57% carry a knife for defensive reasons, which often gets used against them as well. Adam, I saved you for last because you are a knife crime activist yourself, and you've done so much good work on this, Adam. Why don't you take it from here and tell us about your experiences with it?
Look, in 1991, my dad was stabbed to death in our family pub. So knife crime hits home with me. I've got a 16-year-old boy, and I'm petrified of him going out. He's not allowed to go a lot of places. When we look at the deterrence, Bill and Chloe touched on this. Myself and Norman Brennan, a former police officer, set up a petition. We needed 100,000 signatures to get it debated in Parliament about 5-year mandatory sentences for anyone carrying a knife, 3 years for youths. We didn't get enough people sign it. Can you believe that?
That's crazy.
Look, people put themselves out for certain things, but until it happens to them, they're not passionate like maybe I am. One thing I will say is, look, I've got some stats for London, and the elephant in the room is. And look, I work with a lot from the black community, from boxing to community leaders. They want me to say this. So anyone that tries to paint me as a racist for saying this, facts can't be racist. 45% of London murders with a knife are black individuals. 61% of knife perpetrators in London are black individuals, black men. There is a knife offence every 30 minutes in London. Now, until we address this problem and we increase stop and search, we increase deterrence and scare kids. Now, look, I've always said, if I was an MP, I would make schools Educate kids on a prison cell. Take them to a closed down prison. Put them in a cell for a minute just to show them. Let's educate our children at what a life of crime can do. Because I've spent 30 odd years thinking about my dad, you know, and not to get emotional here, but it tears families apart.
Yeah.
And now I worry for the rest of my life for my child.
Yeah.
This is not right. We cannot be a Western democracy in 2025 and worry about our kids going out and getting stabbed or our women getting raped or assaulted. Something has to happen in Britain.
I totally agree. Chloe, just to go back to the sort of the politics of this all, because it was Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary, that really sort of weakens the powers of stop and search. And that is a policy which I think is abysmal. I think we should, in terms of stopping it, let me just be clear, that we should be doing far more of that, particularly in areas where there's a high likeliness for a young man to carry a knife. We've got this fear, our politicians have got this fear of being deemed racist. And even though policies like that could save someone's life, the fear of being racist seems to overtake it.
Yeah, woke kills, and this is the clear example of this. All the people who are obsessed with DEI and not upsetting the BAME community or being racist, their ideology is literally killing people, and it's a huge shame. We have to move away from that. We need to make sure that police are not scared of doing stop and search because they're worried about being called racist. And it's not just knife crime, it's, for example, shoplifting, people not being stopped because people think, oh, if I grab them and stop them until the police come and they happen to be a person of colour, I'm going to get done for some sort of racist attack. We need to just kill this woke ideology because it really is costing lives.
Yeah, Bill, what do you make of that? I mean, I think that there's a good point there about stop and search, which I think I'm very passionate. I think we need to do more of that. I think this is going to save lives, and I think we should put people's feelings aside if it means we can save young people's lives.
Absolutely. I'm a supporter of stop and search. You should use it vigorously because it can have an impact. But Adam's point about, 45% of those who commit knife crime are black, those are Met figures.
No, it's 61%.
Well,
45%.
You said 45.
No, I said 45% of murder victims are black.
Yeah.
I care about all people, not just white.
Absolutely,
black, or brown.
but put it in context, and I think this focus to try and claim that it's linked to race. 44% of the London population are foreign nationals.
But they're not black. 13% of London population is black.
A significant proportion of them.
That's men and women, Bill. So only about 7% of Londoners are black males, and they are committing 61% of knife crime.
I think you should target knife crime wherever it occurs.
And that's in the black community.
Yeah, wherever it occurs. But, one of the things that the last Labour government got really right was Tony Blair's focus on tough on crime, tough on the causes of crime. And I think that's what you've got to do. You've got to have tough sentencing. There's already 4-year sentences for carrying a knife.
Yep.
There's
never used.
It is used. There's a host of cases where it's used.
Is the problem there, again, we go back to this prisons population issue, because we just cannot put enough people in prisons anymore, can we? We have to let them go.
Let's stop arresting people for online crimes then, and let's police the streets instead of the internet.
I couldn't agree more with you on that. And when I was looking at the figures for this, because I tried to refresh my memory on this, because it always gets worse, unfortunately, these numbers. 25% go on to reoffend. 25% go on to reoffend. That is a really stark figure, and I can't, off the top of my head, I can't quite remember what the figure of how many people go back into prison for this is, but it's shocking.
Recidivism is a huge problem, and it has been for donkey's years. Yeah. The prison population needs tackling. I mean, if you look at the evidence of those who are sentenced to less than 12 months, it's almost worse than not doing anything, because the level of recidivism. So you tackle it in part in that way, but you need to tackle the root causes. You need to be tough on those who commit knife crime, but you also need to reach out to young people, many of whom are being targeted and misled to get involved in knife crime. And that means you need old-fashioned youth workers, mental health professionals, the health service and the police working together.
Adam, when we talk, because again, I want to get back to Middlesbrough and these parts of England, we just completely forget about them, because of course we're here in the London bubble as well. And I want to keep going back to Middlesbrough, because when I again was doing this research, I was like, it's Middlesbrough, because we always talk about London, don't we? Always, and it is shocking here, it is shocking. But those poor people left behind in Middlesbrough don't even being talked about.
Look, I'm getting that Middlesbrough has some very poor parts, and there's not a lot of opportunities for youngsters there. So, what you'll find is a lot of knife crime is linked to drugs and crime. Now, that would suggest that these young people aren't seeing another way out. you know, and if there is no deterrent, and I'll go back to this with Bill, we need to bypass judges and make it mandatory. So if you are caught with a machete, you get 5 years. No liberal judge or woke court can say there's a suspended sentence. That's what we need.
Yeah, I think that kids need to have consequences for their actions, not just from the police when they do something serious with a knife, but it starts in the classroom and at home. I think we've got soft parenting, teachers being way too soft. I don't think we should go back to the days of kids being hit or anything, but it needs to be much stricter. My school was the kids were feral, they were crazy, no respect for the teachers. School went into special measures because Ofcom forced us to have a new head teacher, and straight away within 2 weeks of a new behavioural policy, all these kids straight in line because there were harsh punishments for misbehaving. It's simple. It's really simple.
I mean, you know, before, because we've got to wrap this up, unfortunately, because it's brilliant. I could talk about this all evening because I'm really, really passionate about this, and I see how terribly it destroys families. We've got the Home Secretary's got a duty to refugees in this country, and you may argue that's a fair thing to have. Why is there not a duty to protect people from things like knife crime? Why is there not a duty, a legal obligation to get these numbers down? That's what I want to know, and I want our politicians to do far more, and I just don't think they are. I think they're dodging. When Sadiq Khan put up those figures on X, it enraged me, because yes, it might have been a segment in time where those figures were getting slightly down, but the overall figure is up massively. And to then celebrate that, I just felt like it was such a really slap in the face to everyone that's really suffering with this terrible, terrible crimes, particularly knife crimes, just as Adam correctly said, tearing families apart. But anyway, earlier this month, Sadiq Khan has said this. The latest figures show robbery, theft, residential burglary and knife crime are down in London, but there's still a long way to go before I'm satisfied. Backed with record funding from City Hall, the Met is putting high visibility policing at the heart of fighting crime. OK.